Hello students, in this video lecture we are going to discuss about the collision resolution algorithms for the hash search techniques. In the previous video lecture we discussed about various hash search techniques, and also we identified that the major drawback of hash search is the possibility of collisions. Let me remind you what did we mean as the collision. Whenever we want to store or retrieve an element into the memory or the list, we have to first apply that key to the hash function, and the result of the hash function should be used as the address. And when we want to retrieve, it works fine, but when you want to insert and when you generate an address using the hash function based on the key, it's not guaranteed that that particular address would be free. It may have been already occupied by some other key. That is because the number of keys will be much larger than the number of addresses. So it's not possible to provide one-to-one mapping between every key and a unique address. So a lot of times or a lot of schemes will cause multiple keys to share the same addresses. So collisions are inevitable in those cases. And so what is the remedy for that? Somehow we have to reposition the new key into a new address. So that is what the basic idea of collision resolution. So every time when the address calculated by the hash function is already occupied, we have to find a new address and we have to store the new key into that address. And the problem with collision resolution is that one is we have to search elaborately when we want to locate an element. It's not simply finding the element at its hash address, because that is only possible if that space is free and it's exactly stored there. But whenever collisions occur, the values are redirected to some new addresses. So when we want to locate that particular value, if you find it in its original hash address, then the search is over and we get the result in O of 1. Otherwise we have to search in many other locations finally to determine whether the value is stored in the list or it's not stored in the list. And that is one problem. And second problem is that when we resolve a collision and by storing that key into a new address, there may be some other key meant for that particular address, and when that is tried to be inserted, then it could result in a collision again. So this is a secondary collision because of a previous collision. So both problems needs to be somehow minimized. We are going to discuss about a number of collision resolution algorithms. And the problem of collision happens in every hash technique except the first two techniques which we discussed, direct and subtraction. That is because these two techniques assume that the number of keys are equivalent to the number of addresses. Only then we can implement either direct or subtraction. So small implementations with the small size of list can be implemented in this way. No collision needs to be tackled. But for other schemes which are all meant for more volume of data, this is inevitable. So we have to do some collision resolution implementation. So whenever we hash a key to an address, we may find a collision there. And we are going to discuss techniques, and we have to remember that these techniques are independent of the hashing algorithms. Hashing algorithms which we discussed earlier are the primary algorithms when we implement the hash search. So whenever we say hash search, we are focusing or we are talking about the hash algorithms, whether it is direct or subtraction or modulo division. They are the actual algorithms, and these resolution algorithms are only come into picture when there is a collision and it needs to be resolved. These are secondary algorithms. Okay, and what they say is that you can combine any resolution algorithm with any hash algorithm. So there is no such thing as only this algorithm works with modular division. It's not there is no connection between the hash algorithm and the resolution algorithm. You can use anything for any hash. So that is, each hashing method can be used with any of the collision resolution methods. So these are the actual summary of the group of the collision resolution algorithms. So the first group is open addressing, which has 4 algorithms. Next group contains the method based on linked list, and the third is a method in the name of buckets. So we will discuss all these algorithms in this video lecture. First we will start with the open addressing, but before going to that we have to be knowing a few more concepts to understand the implementation of the resolution algorithms. The first concept to be remembered is that for a collision resolution, empty elements or the presence of empty elements is important, which I already pointed out in my previous lecture, that without empty elements collision resolution is either impossible or it's too difficult. Okay, you have to eliminate some existing element, only then you can add the new element if there is no empty space in the list. So this is point number 1. We always assume that there are empty elements in the list. In fact, whenever the term full list for a hash list does not mean 100% full, it only means a reasonable amount of address is full. So because we should never let the hash list to be fully occupied, which will result in collision resolution impossible. So the thumb rule is that maximum 75% of the hash list can be at most full. So there should be some 25% of the addresses to be available for collision resolution. This is leading to that particular point leads to the idea of local factor. So the local factor stands for the local factor of a hash list is the number of elements in the list divided by the number of physical elements expressed by as a percentage. Let me show, and it is represented using the symbol alpha. So I am just showing the example. So k alpha equal to k divided by n into 100. What do you mean by k is that k represents the number of actual elements in the list. So if the list is say 100, list size is 100, and if there are currently 75 elements, then k is equal to 75. So the current number of elements in the list is simply k, and n is the maximum number of elements. So in my example I said 100 is the size of the list, then n equal to 100, and 100 is multiplied so that it becomes here into percentage. Now the next concept to be understood is clustering. Actually clustering is a problem which is a side effect of collision resolution. So whenever we do collision resolution as for solving the problem, it leads to a further problem called clustering. So what is clustering? Clustering is when we do collision resolution, the data tends to group in a particular order. So whenever we redirect the keys because of collisions, it leads to a pattern that the redirected keys gets stored in a particular group within the list. That means the data tend to build up unevenly across the hash list, which is called as clustering, and that is our second concept. So when we redirect reposition the collision keys, they tend to distribute unevenly across the hash list, and leading to the two problems which I pointed out, that searching on among the collision resolved keys is going to be a tedious task, and they may cause secondary collisions, as we already seen. So clustering is a concern because it is usually created by collisions. If the list contains high degree of clustering, the number of probes to locate an element grows. Number of probes in the sense number of searches needed to locate an element grows, because we have to anticipate the element to be present in multiple locations, and so we have to compare the elements in several locations to finally find out where it is exactly located or whether it's not located at all. And also it reduces the processing efficiency of the list. So we have actually got two types of clustering, but the basic idea or meaning of clustering is already defined. The collision resolution results in creating a group of unevenly ordered group of storage of the keys. So first, primary clustering. Primary clustering occurs when data cluster occur around a home address. So when you want to store an element in its home address is the address generated by its hash function. If that address is already occupied, then we store it nearby some other address, and when one more data needs to be stored in that home address again, we again reposition it. So what will happen over a period is that around the home address there will be plenty of keys stored, all because of the collisions. So this situation is called primary clustering. Primary clustering is easy to identify. It is a tendency for a collision resolution scheme such as linear probing. The reason they are considering linear probing as an example here is that remember that linear probing causes the values to be stored in subsequent addresses, so +1. So that will result in primary collision to create long runs of filled slots near the hash position of the keys. So we will see example, so you will understand easily. For example, if the hash index of a particular key is x, let us assume that for some key the hash index generates x as the index. Then subsequent probes go to x plus 1, x plus 2 and x plus 3 and so on. This results in primary clustering. So when x is already occupied, we store the next value in x plus 1, and when the one more value needs to be stored at x, we store it in x plus 2 and x plus 3 and so on. So all the adjacent addresses for x will be occupied by various synonyms of the first key. Here the same example is depicted. So what we see here is that this is the list in which we want to store various keys. First we try to store the key k, and for that we apply the hash function. That hash function generates an address, and we have to first check whether that address is currently occupied or free. And at this point of time that address is free, so k can be successfully stored there. And after storing k, we want to store p and use the same hash function, but this time also it produces the same address, so we call it as a collision. And because of this collision, we store p in the next address, because we are just simply following address plus 1 formula, so it gets stored into the next immediate address. So the problem is resolved, and after some time we try to we want to store q, and q has a totally different address, so without any collision it gets stored in its address. And finally we want to store y, and the hash function of y also generates the same address of k. So we do the collision resolution again, and the next address is also not free because p is occupying, so we go to the third address. If one more value needs to be stored at k, it will get stored after y. this is the basic idea of primary clustering. So the values tend to cluster around the home address. So here we can see that K, P, Y are all stored around the home address, which is the address of K. We are now going to talk about the second problem or second type of clustering called secondary clustering. Secondary clustering occurs when data become grouped along the collision path throughout a list. So point number one, this is an opposite of primary clustering. So here the clustering does not happen around the home address, but it happens far away from the home address. So the values are in fact gets stored across the list with the proper distribution. So it's not a primary clustering problem. So there is that is point number one. And second point is that still it is considered as a problem because it is not easy to identify where a particular element is stored after the collision resolved. So when an element needs to be located, and if it is not found in its original hash function address, then it has to be searched across the list, because it can even be stored at the end of the list. Whereas in the primary clustering situation, the value is immediately found in some adjacent address. We need not have to go far away to find it, but that is needed in the secondary clustering. And the second problem with the secondary clustering is that the tendency for a collision resolution scheme such as quadratic probing to create long runs of filled slots away from the hash position keys. The example of quadratic probing we will see shortly. For example, if the primary hash index is x, probes go to x plus 1. So you can see clearly that there is a gap. X plus 1 is the resolution address for the first collision. X plus 4 is the resolution address for the second, x plus 9, x plus 16 and 25. So they are actually going to be distributed across the list, not going to be stored adjacently or together around the home address. So in terms of as a problem, secondary clustering is a less severe problem comparing to the primary clustering, because it is distributing across the list, and so we won't be facing that situation we face with the primary clustering. But it affects the performance because of the search time required. So the data are widely distributed across the whole list, so the list appears to be well distributed under secondary clustering. But problem is time to locate a requested element can drastically increase. This is an example for that. So now also we want to store the same set of elements. So K gets stored properly and P results in a collision, and now we can see P gets stored away from K. It's not nearby the home address. It gets stored at a long distance. And next, okay, here we are seeing a new problem that was not there in the previous case. So we want to store Q, but P is already sitting in its place. Even though they are not synonyms, P has been resolved or stored, repositioned into the address which is the target address of key Q. So they collide, and that collision results in moving Q to a different address, and that address causes a subsequent collision of Y. So Y has to be moved to some other address. So this is another problem. So we can't totally eliminate collisions in any of the schemes. We can only minimize the impact of the collision resolution, except a linked list scheme, which you will see at the end. That is the only scheme where we can totally avoid the subsequent collisions because of collision resolutions. So from the discussion it should be apparent that we need to design our hashing algorithms to minimize both forms of clustering. So our algorithm should have less amount of primary and secondary clustering, but definitely we can't totally avoid the clustering problem in any of the algorithms which we are going to discuss. We can't eliminate collisions, and a few elements need to be inserted into a list for collision. And one more point they say is that collisions doesn't occur when when the entire list is full. It is starting to occur just with the few elements being inserted. So the moment you insert some few elements, collisions begin to occur. It doesn't require the entire list to be or most of the list to be full. So we start to experience collisions just with a few elements. And if you have the list with the 365 addresses, it only requires 23 elements to be inserted to start experiencing the 50% chance is there for collisions to occur just after 23 inserts. And one more concept which we are adding is that how many elements you are required to compare or examine while searching for a place after a collision. That has to be limited. So whatever the collision resolution algorithm we identify, it should have minimum search requirements to place the collided key into a new address. That there should be some limit on it. The traditional limit of examining all elements presents three possibilities. One is the search is not sequential, that is you are not going to be searching in the list in sequential. See, we just saw that in the previous example that the collision resolution may scatter the keys across in the list. So we have to jump from location to location, left to right to check whether the given element is stored there. So it's not a sequential search, and so it will be time consuming. Secondly, examining every element would be excessively time consuming. That is obvious. It becomes a linear search. So when you implement the hash search poorly, where a collision resolution requires searching every element, then it simply tends to become a linear search implementation, not retaining the characteristic and benefit of hash search. And in some techniques we can't physically examine all the elements in the list. So we are okay. One more concept is collision limit. So computer scientists generally prefer to place a limit on the collision limit on the algorithm. So whatever the algorithm that is implemented, it should have less number of collisions. Only then it has to be implemented in a given situation. So that is called collision limit. What exactly is the limit is left to the implementation, but there should be some limit which should determine whether the algorithm is performing very poorly or it's acceptable. In case if the implementation exceeds that limit, then the program may have to be aborted, or we have to store the data in a separate list, which is the idea of the linked list. Now we are going to discuss about the actual techniques. The first category of technique is called open addressing. Open addressing is not an is not a collision resolution algorithm, but it is a category. So the idea behind the characteristic of open addressing is that it resolves collisions in the prime area. So it's not like it is going to result in more of primary clustering than secondary clustering. We saw that secondary clustering is occurring when the collision resolution results in storing of the new keys at the faraway locations from the home key. But the techniques under open addressing tend to create primary key clustering by storing the keys at adjacent or closer addresses from the home key. So when a collision occurs, the prime area addresses are searched for an open or unoccupied element where the new data can be placed. So we are going to discuss these 4 techniques under that. Simple techniques which you will easily understand: linear probe, quadratic probe, double hashing, and key offset. Linear probe is a simplest technique. So what we do is we just add 1 with the current address. So whenever we find that the hash address generated by the hash function for a key is already occupied, just add 1 with the existing address, and you will find that it's more like the example we saw already: x plus 1, x plus and then again x plus 1. So whenever x, let us assume x is the address of the generated by the hash function, and if x is not free, then just add 1 with x and use that as the new address. That is the simplest idea. So when we insert this particular key, we find an empty element and insert it without collision. But when we want to insert one more element, we find a collision at 001. We assume that 001 was the address of the previous key when there is a collision. So this collision will result in storing the data at 002. In case if 002 is also occupied, then we will add one more 1 and we will try the 002 for the possibility. And you can clearly see that this will lead to primary clustering, 003 and so on. And that is what is indicated in this in the example. So every time you generate an address, you first target the original address, and if it is not available, then aim for the next address and keep incrementing this until either you reach the last address and tested all the addresses in the entire list, or you found the address. As an alternative, there is an alternative provided. Instead of keep adding 1, they just say that you add 1, subtract 2, add 3 and subtract 4. So why they give this kind of multiple operations is that so that you break the primary clustering. So when you keep adding 1, it's going to result in primary clustering, and to overcome that, you follow different formula, that is add 1, subtract 2 and add 3, subtract 4, like in this example. So given a collision at 341, we will first try 142, which is add 1. If that fails, then we calculate 340, that is add 1, subtract 2, that is subtract 2. So 342 minus 2, 340, and if that also is already occupied, then try add 3, so 343. If it fails again, then subtract 4. So we try multiple and the point is we don't try adjacent addresses, we try random addresses. One is the resultant address might be better in terms of primary clustering, and also we have a better chance of finding a new address. So when we try to search in the adjacent addresses, they may have been already occupied because of previous collisions, so the chances of finding a new address may be less. In either method, the code for the linear probe must ensure that the next collision resolution address lies within the boundaries of the list. We have a potential problem that has to be taken care. So by keep incrementing and decrementing, we may go out of the list itself. For example, if the list contains 400 elements and we keep incrementing, it may go out of the list as 401 or 400 plus. So that has to be prevented. Similarly, when we keep subtracting by 1, it may also go less than the starting index. So that is also another problem. So we have it is just a matter of using that logic correctly, so that when we test within the address range of the list. It has two advantages. First, they are quite simple to implement, and secondly, data tend to remain near their home address. So the search time for the addresses, the keys will be reasonably lower. The next scheme is called quadratic probe. In the quadratic probe, the increment is the collision probe number squared. So we just change the formula here. So instead of adding the in a fixed number as 1, 2 or something, what we do here is that we find the square of the probe number and add it with the address. So what is the probe number is? Probe is the search. So for example, if a collision occurs, we try to find a new address, and that finding that new address will require the search logic. So we have to calculate a new address either by adding 1 or doing some other logic according to the resolution algorithm, and search in the new address. If that address is also not free, then we recalculate one more address and go there. This process is called probe. So that we keep maintaining the number of probes we are conducting. Let us say currently we are doing the 6th probe for a particular element. Then we use 6 square as the value. We calculate 6 square and add it with the address. I'll show. We will see an example for that. So the first probe will take 1 square, second probe will take 2 square, third 3 square, and so on, until we find an empty element or we exhaust the possible elements. And there is a problem with the square method, that we may get out of the list very easily. So as we get large numbers, when they square them, we may leave the list itself, and to overcome that we follow the modulo division. So the list size will be used, and the modulo division, when we calculate the square, we do the modulo division of that value by the list size. So it gets confined to the list range. So we have this example for during the first probe, when a collision occurs at location 1, how do we calculate the new address? 1 square, step 1 is you find the square of the current probe number 1 square, and after that you add that with the collision address, which is 1. So 1 plus 1, 2, and we have to do the modulo division by 100, but because it's still within that range, nothing happens. So 2 is the resultant address. In case if another probe occurs at some other address, location 2, again the same logic, find 2 square and add it with the address where collision occurred, so it becomes 6. So this will be continued until we find, see, in case if you find the let us say somebody wants to store a value at location 1 and there is a collision, so he will try 2, and 2 is also full, it's also occupied, then he will try 6, and 6 is also full, which means he will try 15. So he may succeed somewhere in one of the probes, or he may never succeed. If all the addresses generated by the various probes are all resulting in non-empty, then finally it will be given up, saying that there is no space left in the list. Otherwise it will stop somewhere in one of the iterations. This is the scheme of the quadratic probe. A quadratic probe has one limitation: it is not possible to generate a new address for every element in the list. So you can see in this example itself, we get a duplication for 2 keys, that is both here there is a collision at 5 and then there is a collision at 86. The probe numbers are also different. The probe numbers are different, collision resolutions are different, still they generate the same number because of the modulo division we did. So the numbers are duplicated. So this is the problem of the quadratic probe. It leads to plenty of duplications. So only a small number of unique addresses will be generated. So in fact, for the given example, if you continue this probe for multiple times, let's say for 100 times, you will find only 59 unique probes producing new addresses, and all others will be duplicates. And in the example we saw that the first duplicate happened for probe number 10, which is 86 repeated twice. But there will be many more duplications if we continue this probe beyond 10 and do it up to, let's say, 100. So one way of reducing this the duplication is choosing the list size to be a prime number. This is something we already discussed, that prime number selection is best for hash functions, since it has the collision is likely to be controlled. So the same suggestion is made here also. Try to identify the list size to be a prime number. The next resolution algorithm is pseudo-random algorithm. Actually, that the algorithm is not different from the pseudo-random hash search which we discussed earlier. We just use it in a different context. Nothing is changed here. We will use the same formula. Only thing is we use it for a different purpose. The previous techniques, they are called double hashing. Double hashing because the same address is rehashed. So whenever there is a collision, we use the old address to find a new address. So that is called double hashing. And all these schemes which we so far discussed, they are basically double hashing algorithms. Double hashing will have the advantage, I mean it will, and one more point is that the previous schemes have the chances of reducing the primary clustering, because we try to distance the keys, except the first scheme where everything is added by 1, which will result in the primary clustering. In other schemes, we tried to somehow give a gap between them, though the gap is not so huge like secondary clustering. It's still reasonably good to avoid any primary clustering. And a pseudo-random collision resolution uses a random generator to resolve the collision. I will straight away go to the algorithm, which is same as what we already seen. So what we do here is that we are assuming a collision at address 1 and a list size of 307, again a prime number, and we need 2 prime numbers for the formula. A, C and 5 and 3 are taken. So the same formula used here, y equal to ax plus c, and modulo addition by list size. The only difference here is that here x is not the key that we want to store, but because in the hash function implementation of the pseudo-random, we replaced the x by the key which you want to store. But here what we do is that we use x as the collision address. So in whichever address we found a collision, that becomes the value of x. So for example, in our example, we had collision at address 1. So we use it as 3 into 1 plus 5 and modulo addition by 307, which results in 8, and 8 becomes the new address to redirect the collision that happened at address 1. And though we have used the prime numbers as 3 and 5, if you increase the prime number size, then it will give a better result, like 1663 can be used instead of the simple small values. That is exactly demonstrated here. So the pseudo-random algorithm will keep recalculating the new address based on 3x plus 5 or ax plus c, where x is the collision address and y is going to be the new address generated for the resolution. There are simple solutions, as we saw, just a formula is required, but they have a different problem, which is resolution path. So they travel on the same path repeatedly, which means that if a first collision occurs and you try to resolve it using the pseudo-random algorithm, and you will find an address and store the collided value. But subsequently, when a new collision occurs, they are likely to get into the same path and choose the same address. That is collision resolution path. This deficiency also occurs in linear and quadratic probes. And because pseudo-random collision resolution can create a significant secondary clustering. This is secondary clustering because the addresses generated by the pseudo-random numbers are distributed across the list. So what is needed to overcome this drawback of secondary clustering is that we need to generate or overcoming the resolution path followed by the pseudo-random algorithm is that we need an algorithm which generates addresses for different keys. So based on the key, the address has to differ, but in pseudo-random the address is generated independent of the key, and so it tries to follow the same path. Because here what we do is, in pseudo-random we input the address of the collision into the formula. It has nothing to do with the key value. So the key value is not at all considered. We only use the collision address. So we have a different scheme called offset scheme, key offset scheme, in which the key plays a role in determining the address. So key offset is also a double hashing method that produces different collision paths for different keys. So when the key differs, the address will also differ. It's again having a simple formula. So whereas the pseudo-random generator produces a new address as a function of the old address, the key offset calculates the new address as a function of the old address along with the key. So the path will be broken now because the keys are random. Addresses are in sequence, but keys are going to be randomly coming from the user. So that is going to bring the variation into the address. So the simple scheme is, first you calculate the offset as key divided by list size. The key is the one that you want to store, and list size is the fixed number, which is, let's say, 307. So you calculate the offset simply by dividing key by list size. After that you find the address by adding the offset with the old address modulo division by list size. So we combine the old address with the offset. Unlike the pseudo-random where only old address is considered, this introduces randomness into the address. So the same path will not be followed because of the variation in the keys. So the example is showing that. So for example, when the key is 166702 and the list size is 307, using modulo division hashing method generates an address of 1, and this is a synonym of this value and produces collision as address 1. So using key offset to calculate the next address, we get 237. How do we get it? This is how it is done, and address 166702 is the key value which is used for calculating the offset, and then to calculate the address we add 543 with the collision address, which is 1, modulo division by 307, which produces 237, and we check at the address 237 whether it's free. If that is already occupied, then we have to calculate a new address. That happens in this way. Again we go for the key is same and it also produces 543, but now the address is going to be 237 because now we are encountering collision at 237. So we use 237 here, and the new address is 166, and you can see that there is a different path being followed, and this page will make it even clearer. See, the same key produces different key values. Once it produces 543 is the offset. During the first probe it generated 237. During second probe it generated 166. And similarly for different keys you can see different addresses generated. That is the crux of the offset scheme, key offset scheme. It produces different addresses when the key varies. Whereas the other schemes, they will not be considering the key at all, and so they results in the pattern of addresses which are repeatedly same for multiple keys. The next scheme we have got is the linked list collision resolution. So the linked list collision resolution doesn't have any algorithm as we have discussed so far, but it is just a implementation of a data structure for resolving the collisions. Before going to that implementation, let us try to understand why this linked list implementation is needed, and after all the various algorithms we completed. The reason that linked list resolution is suggested is that all the collision resolution algorithms have the potential of creating secondary collisions. So when you do collision resolution for the first case and we redirect the reposition the value into a new address, some other value may have to be stored in that particular address and it may be colliding because of this collision resolution. So collision resolution causing further collisions is there with every scheme, so we can't avoid them, and linked list is meant in that particular situation. So when we want to totally get rid of the collisions due to collision resolution, the linked list is a better alternative. So we can look at this example to understand it. So there is a list here which can be used for storing the keys. So initially we may use any hash function to store the value. We may be using the modulo division or direct hashing. So any scheme can be used, and when we store the key initially in the list and there is no collision, it will go on. Suddenly if a collision occurs at some location, then what we do is that instead of resolving that particular key within the list itself, we put it in a linked list which is attached with the particular the element. So for example, if a collision happens at 0 address, that is address 1, we add a linked list with this particular node and put the colliding address or colliding key into that. In this way we will be keep adding. Say for example, one more collision occurs at the same address, so we insert one more node and put the new key into that. So in this way this will be maintained. You can see that the collision resolution will not add further collisions because there are going to be dynamically new nodes added to hold the new keys. They are never going to collide with any other keys. That is the benefit of linked list. And one more suggestion they give is that instead of maintaining the list in a random order, it's also more efficient if it is maintained in a LIFO sequence, last in first out. The last scheme to conclude the discussion is bucket hashing. So bucket hashing is again a simple mechanism. I can show you the example. See here what we do is that each element will have multiple addresses. So previously we had seen that an element will have one address and you can store one key. The moment that address is occupied, it results in a collision. But with the bucketing, we add more than one address into each element so that simultaneously we can accommodate multiple keys in the same address or same bucket in this implementation. It's called a bucket, not address. So that is the simple idea. So for example, when we want to store a value at bucket 0, you can store it without any collision. and even if you want to store one more key, that also can be stored without any collision. It's only after you have stored 3 elements you are going to face collision under the bucketing scheme. So the number of collisions can be minimized by implementing bucketing, but problem is it requires more memory space, because it will have lot of empty spaces. And number 2, even after bucketing it may still result in collision. Like if all the 3 as in the second case, if all the 3 are free occupied, then we are again going to face the collision, and some other collision resolution is needed. So in this given example they have followed a linear probe example. So the bucket overflows and the overflowed element gets inserted into the next bucket, and which could cause collision for some other key belonging to that particular bucket. So it's not a perfect technique. It is a kind of technique which when our aim is to reduce the number of collisions, this may be opted. So these are the various collision resolution schemes. So we saw what is a collision, and what are the objectives of collision resolution techniques, and what are the categories of collision resolution techniques, and what is the merits and demerits of the various techniques. Thank you.